As faculty members, we're all used to teaching in classrooms. We know how it works. We can see students and get verbal cues and non-verbal cues about how they're doing. We can sense the mood of the room and adjust our tempo, our content, the way we're presenting, the way we're using humour to reflect the mood of the room. We can change our minds about what content we're going to deliver that day, live, in vivo, in the classroom. Online, you can't do that. Online, you have to plan and prepare. So online is different. It's not worse, it's not better, it's just different. And in fact, there's a lot of evidence that online is becoming a preferred way of students learning, partly because of flexibility, but also because they can track where they are and they understand what it is we're trying to achieve. Some still prefer classroom teaching and classroom instruction. But as a faculty member, you now need to think about how you blend online and classroom, how you think about what we call hybrid learning. But I want to focus on the question, how do we take what we do in the classroom and move it online? And the first thing we need to recognize is we're not just doing that. We're actually thinking about how we have a chance to reinvent what it is the student needs to experience by moving from the classroom to online. We have a rich range of opportunities that whilst we can use some of them in the classroom, we can't use all of them, and we can't use them all in an hour of class time. Student online has more flexible use of time. So we have missing things and we have strengthening things. We are missing non-verbal cues. We are missing the opportunity to be flexible in content delivery on the fly. But we're gaining flexibility about what we can use to teach, how we can differentiate our instruction from one student to another, and how we can think about using knowledge and materials to actually teach differently. So there are opportunities and weaknesses. Let's deal with some of these. First things first, we need to think about what we're trying to achieve, what the learning objectives are. So we begin by analysing what learning should look like if students are going to be successful. How can we design a learning process that engages students, that gets them to want to learn? How can we think about making resources available for different kinds of learning styles? And how do we design our course for students who will track through this course at different speeds? Some will struggle, some will be really fast tracking through. So how do we do this work? The first thing to do is to analyze. How do we analyze what it is that we're trying to achieve? I think about this in terms of time. Week by week, what are we trying to do? How can we do that this week? What's going to be different this week from last? The worst thing about many online courses is it feels the same all the time. So how do I vary not simply what it is we're trying to learn, but how? How can I use video differently this week from last? How can I make use of audio, of text, of case studies, of activities, of projects, of lab work, of field work? How can I get them interacting with each other differently this week from last? So I can think about design and analyse the opportunities for learning differently week by week. The second thing I need to start doing is thinking through the learning objectives for each week. So how do I think about what the students need to master this week to be successful? What are the resources I need to deliver, and how am I going to engage students this week to make that happen? So first thing is think week by week. Second thing is think about the materials you're going to need for the learner to be successful. In doing that, think about different learning styles. The easiest thing in the world is to give students a textbook and say, here you are, this is your work. Well, I think that's an old way of thinking. What I tend to do is to give students the learning materials they need, maybe a chapter from a textbook, maybe a reading online, but I supplement and support that with video and audio material with cartoons, with newspaper resources. I work with librarians to help me resource that. I have materials from past courses I've taught, materials students have created, materials students have generated, materials students have found that I share with the next generation of students. I'm trying to make this lively. I also make sure there are challenging questions each week that students must engage in because I grade participation. What are you going to do for participation, for engagement activities? So I collect the materials and I design them as an interactive process for the students to engage them in their learning. I need to design assessments. I need to design really effective assessments that get the students to do some activities so I can see how they're making progress. These assessments could be short, 10 questions, quick questions, multiple choice, a simple essay question, a problem to solve, or a dialogue to engage in which will tell me if the student understands a key idea or concept. Periodically, I will give students a test that is actually part of the course grade. So we need to design assessments, and I think you need to think about what that could look like. There are some rubrics and protocols suggested in Tips for Teaching in the Contact North portal. I also need to think each week about students who are struggling. What is the support I can give in terms of materials and learning activities for students who are finding this week's work difficult? I will have office hours so students know they can contact me, and I will reach out to students who I've not seen interacting online or who I think are struggling because of the way in which they're solving problems or answering questions or moving through the materials. Remember that all the learning management systems have analytic data that I can use to track the progress of students. I can see how much time they're spending online doing various things, and that will tell me if the student is spending the time they need to learn the material I need them to learn. The big test for an online course is student engagement. Are students getting involved in peer-to-peer interactions, in interactions with me as a faculty member? Are they really using the material to help them learn? And so you need to design those engagement activities, project work, lab work, work in pairs, work in small teams. In all of my courses that I've designed over the last 10 years, I have project-based activities that require students to work in a small group as well as individual assignments. I also use a process of 180-degree assessment, getting students to assess the value and contribution of other students as part of my overall marking scheme. So they know that in order to be successful in the courses I've designed, they have to interact and engage with each other. Now, having designed all of this and worked through the ideas you have for what a good course looks like, you have to develop it. And I'm afraid there's no substitution for the hard slog of sitting there working out what the student should look at and see week by week. Provide a map to how to use that week's work. Provide a guide to how to use the material. Make sure the assessment rubrics are clear. These are essential features of a good course design. Have a basic template so I know as a student what I'm looking at week by week. There are some examples of a template that we've posted online in the Contact North faculty portal. Make sure students know what your office hours are online and they know how to use that time effectively. The last thing that's most important in moving a course from a classroom to online is making sure you're thinking about feedback differently. In a class, we can often give individual feedback to students, quietly at the end of a class, quietly before we're starting a class, or during the class itself. But online, this is more difficult to do. Don't just simply give everybody general feedback. Think about how you're going to make sure each individual knows you're attending to them online, that you're looking at their work and that you're noticing what they're good at and you're drawing attention to where they need to strengthen their learning. Think about your feedback commitments to them, not simply in terms of quality of feedback, but speed of feedback. Students expect it to be much faster in an online environment than in a classroom environment. There are some things not to do. Don't overuse PowerPoint. Don't just ask students to read a chapter of a textbook and discuss it. Set them a challenge. Use textbooks plus video, plus audio. Give them opportunities to have different approaches to the same piece of knowledge. Don't have exactly the same format week by week by week. Surprise them from time to time. Have a different approach. Use some fiction, use some film, use a piece of a novel to get them thinking about the same issues differently. Don't be slow at giving feedback. Turnaround time is critical for effective feedback. And don't overface the student with learning material. I once saw a course where a student was expected to do something like 16 hours a week of just straight reading, even before they'd interacted with anybody else and before they'd done anything with that reading. Think about how the student can use their time effectively to master concepts, knowledge, understanding, skills, and practical application of skill so that they're using their time effectively. Time is precious. Manage their time with them and for them through the design of your course. The worst thing I've seen in an online course is over 700 PowerPoint slides accompanied by a monotone audio track that bored people to tears. It wasn't good learning, but it was a cure for insomnia. So if you want to be a successful online instructor, a faculty member that shines in online learning, think about the experience of the process of learning, not just the content. Think about the learner not simply as a student, but as a person who can co-create learning with you through the online course. Think about online learning as an expedition, a journey, where the student is discovering knowledge and skills, and help them make that journey exciting and interesting. That's the challenge of learning design. I think you can do that because actually, when we think about what we do in the classroom, that's what we do. So, enjoy the work. It's meant to be fun. If you want to find out more, look at the Contact North faculty portal, look at tips and tools, and look at pockets of innovation for ideas. Thank you for your time. I'm Steve Murgatroyd for Contact North.